Good morning from the district. I'm Hallie Brown.
I'm Samantha Cookenham.
And I'm Tyriana Evans. Welcome to District Report.
On this episode, women's rights advocates are continuing to fight for a monumental amendment that would put women in the Constitution.
Meanwhile, the Violence Against Women's Act was temporarily suspended when the government shut down for 34 days this year. We looked at how crisis center hotlines coped.
Why can't Black kids swim? To find out, we explored the history of racism in America's public pools. And finally, we looked into the alleged collusion between Punxsutawney Phil and his DC rival.
Join us for a District Report.
More than 4 decades ago, about 100,000 people marched on the steps of the Capitol in support of the Equal Rights Amendment, known as the ERA. Around the same time, the Stop ERA movement protested the amendment in the nation's capital. Now, many people think that the Constitution guarantees the same rights and protections to women and men. However, this is not true, as there is no clear language that ensures the equality of rights for both men and women. It has been almost a century since the ERA was introduced by women's rights advocate Alice Paul, who secured women's suffrage and still has not become an amendment on our founding document. Let me take you behind the scenes to explain why. The House and the Senate passed the ERA in 1972, nearly 50 years after its introduction. But in order to be an amendment, it had to be ratified by 3/4 of the states within 7 years. In 1977, 2 years before the deadline expired, only 35 states had ratified the ERA. Around this time, Phyllis Schlafly, a conservative activist and founder of the Eagle Forum, led an opposition campaign as the national chairwoman of Stop ERA.
When you make the laws apply equally to men and women, you end up taking away many of the rights that women now have.
I spoke with her daughter, Anne Schlafly Corey, who is the chairwoman of the Eagle Forum.
I think it's very important that everyone understand that ERA does not mention women, it mentions sex.
What Schlafly Corey is referring to is the language of the ERA, which is relatively short compared to other amendments. Bettina Hager, the DC director and COO of the ERA Coalition, discussed the debate around the language.
I think that the argument over what does sex mean is a distraction.
Even though the ratification deadline was extended to 1982, no additional states ratified it in time. Since the expiration of the amendment, it has been introduced in every congressional session, but no action has been taken. Though in 2017, Nevada became the 36th state and Illinois was the 37th state in 2018. The ERA is now 1 state away from being ratified by a majority of the states. Over the last few months, there has been a push to make Virginia number 38, and VA Ratify ERA is leading this endeavor.
Given what our state is currently embroiled in, it would be a really nice narrative to say, look, we are for everyone.
In the midst of these efforts, members of the Congress and Senate have been introducing resolutions to remove the deadline for the ratification. Senators Lisa Murkowski and Ben Cardin recently wrote an op-ed pushing for the ERA to finally be passed after all these years.
Well, in my view, it's 40 years late.
However, some argue that the ERA needs to start over. Although members of Congress were unable to meet for an interview due to shutdown negotiations, some gave me statements with their support for the ERA. The heightened awareness has revived the debate that has been going on for decades.
There is one reason only that this is being done today, and that is the attempt by the proponents to secure abortion rights in the U.S. Constitution.
The Equal Rights Amendment is about equality. It just is.
You saw the ERA Now pins prominently displayed on members of Congress at the State of the Union. The ERA Coalition and the VA Ratify ERA hopes that progress will be made by 2020 in time for the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. However, if these efforts are a success, there is a very high chance that a case will go before the Supreme Court in order to sort out the gray areas of the ERA. Samantha Cookenham, District Report.
The partial government shutdown not only left 800,000 workers furloughed, but also prompted the expiration of the Violence Against Women Act. The shutdown affected services for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence under the Department of Justice. As the partial government shutdown continued into the new year, the expiration of the Violence Against Women Act initially stripped funding for resources for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. Now that the government reopened on January 25th, the funding will stay intact until February 15th. The government's closure, a major national event, sparked a surge of calls to crisis center hotlines across the country. The federal shutdown is not the only event to ignite an increase in calls over the past year.
I know whenever issues of sexual assault are heavily focused on in the media, a lot of people who are kind of forced to pay attention to it or watch the news all the time feel really traumatized by that and really do need the extra support.
When the Violence Against Women Act expired due to the longest government shutdown in history, funding for crisis hotlines through the Department of Justice were temporarily halted, putting survivors in a potentially difficult situation. Dan Moshenberg, a professor in the Women's, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department at GW, said many organizations that are designed to help women who experience violence survive paycheck to paycheck and depend greatly on federal funding.
And if the money doesn't come through, it'll be catastrophic across the country. I mean, it's that cut and dry.
These services are crucial to everybody, and not offering them, to me, it's just not an option.
Survivors of sexual assault in Washington, D.C. can go to the Metropolitan Police Department website where national and local resources are listed. MPD's website provides the numbers for crisis hotlines connecting survivors to trained representatives.
So if you are empathetic and you are open and you are unassumptive and you're inclusive, then there's no way you will hurt someone on the hotline. Like, you won't make the situation worse. You will always make it better.
For District Report, I'm Tyriana Evans.
Swimmers take your mark. To honor Black History Month in the district, hundreds of young swimmers from across the country competed at the 33rd annual Black History Invitational Swim Meet. The event not only offered some friendly competition, but honored the legacy and history of African Americans in the sport of swimming. Let's dive in. The Black History Invitational Swim Meet was the first swim meet in the nation to celebrate the contributions of African Americans to the sport of swimming. The meet recently attracted international coverage when the BBC reported on the meet this year. The Invitational is also unique due to the large number of minority swimmers that participate in the meet. According to the USA Swimming Foundation, 64% of African American children have little to no swimming ability, compared to only 40% of Caucasian children. Black Kids Swim is a nonprofit that hopes to change that. So you're not a swimmer? You're learning how to swim.
Looking at what the children do, them being an inspiration for me, that made me want to learn.
We increased Black participation in the sport of competitive swimming.
These statistics are a reminder of less than 60 years ago when African Americans were not allowed to swim in public pools as a result of Jim Crow laws.
To keep our kids safe, the parents of that generation said, don't go to the pool, because I don't want you to get a rock thrown at you, or I don't want you to get acid thrown on you.
In light of that history, the Black History Invitational Swim Meet Committee selects a notable African American in history or in the sport of swimming to be recognized every year. This year's honoree is Howard University head swim and dive coach Nicholas Askew.
Coach Nick Askew and his swimmers and divers are amazing. They've been very open and welcoming to Black Kids Swim.
The Black History Invitational Swim Meet is more than a competition. It's the opportunity to honor the swimming legacy of all those who came before and to see a glimpse of future Olympic swimmers. For District Report, I'm Hallie Brown.
As a former swimmer and now USA Swimming certified coach, I understand the importance of getting minorities involved in the sport of swimming, but also all children. According to the Centers for Disease Control, drowning is the second leading cause of unintentional childhood deaths. So it's really important to make sure that all children know how to swim to not only save a life, but also have fun.
Yeah, for this piece, I got to sit down with Ebony from Black Kids Swim, and we got into this big conversation about the policies that really excluded the African American community from public pools. So to be there like all these years later and to watch the Black community and especially Black kids just really be invited into that space was just so inspirational. I loved every second of being at that meet. But Samantha, your piece actually also touched on policies that kind of remove minority communities from them with your ERA package, and you actually ended up hearing from Congress about that too.
Yes, so I received statements from 3 representatives and 2 senators, and for example, Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney stated, "Shouldn't we eliminate any doubt that men and women are equal? Shouldn't equality be a default, the inalienable truth? Now is the time we are demanding a seat at the table, and we are ready to make equality reality."
Yeah, and I just love that as a women's studies major, the whole piece, and just quotes like that are just so inspirational, and I just absolutely love it.
And I think that it's just a powerful statement to say, like, you know, the fight for equality still continues after all these years, like over a century.
Of course.
And in the piece, you also see an interview from Senator Lisa Murkowski, which was actually provided from her communications team. And you also, with the graphic, you see the different Republicans and senators, senators and representatives who support the amendment. So it'll be interesting, even with support from some Republicans, the fight still continues for the Equal Rights Amendment. And now, continuing with the discussion between the intersection of gender and politics, Tyranna, you also explored this topic, and I know this year marks the 25th anniversary for the Violence Against Women's Act. So what are the current updates with the act?
Yeah, last week, the U.S. House of Representatives reauthorized the Violence Against Women's Act, which included provisions such as closing the boyfriend loophole, which allowed convicted stalkers and abusive dating partners to buy and carry guns due to not being like in a marital relationship with their partner. On a lighter note, DC correspondent and groundhog expert Justine Coleman explored the rivalry between the famous Pennsylvania groundhog, Punxsutawney Phil, and his DC competitor right here in DuPont Circle. Take a look.
Families and friends braced the 20-degree weather in the early morning of Groundhog Day for an annual tradition in DuPont Circle, seeing the groundhog Potomac Phil predict whether the cherry blossoms will be blooming soon or if snow will continue to blanket the district.
Once a year, the lonely and weary eyes of the nation turn to this tiny DC neighborhood to watch a master at work. The master, Potomac Phil.
The location is not the only difference between Punxsutawney Phil and DuPont's groundhog. Potomac Phil is taxidermy, but he still attracted a crowd.
Potomac Phil saw his shadow. So 6 more weeks of winter and 2 more years of political insanity. In Phil we trust.
Many people who attended the ceremony have been coming for years.
I come every year. This is a tradition. I love Groundhog Day. It's my favorite holiday.
I was excited to do something so unusual. I have never done before.
But not everyone believes in Potomac Phil. Some skeptics have accused him of collusion since his predictions have always aligned with Punxsutawney Phil's, who announces his forecast a half hour earlier. But this year, the Pennsylvanian rodent anticipated an early spring, straying from Potomac Phil's call.
Well, I just got to say that there has never been any collusion. It's an absolute ridiculous statement. There's just never been any collusion, and today we see that that Potomac Phil speaks on his own.
Meet my friend Potomac Phil. He predicted 6 more weeks of winter as well as 2 more years of political gridlock. Will this mean another shutdown? We'll have to see if his prediction is correct. I'm Justine Coleman from District Report.
Now, Justine couldn't join us today, but such a great piece. And I remember when we saw the group photo, they couldn't even fit all of the participants in there, and it was 20 degrees. So to see such a great turnout, and there were babies there, it was wonderful.
And especially for a taxidermied groundhog, it's not even real.
Yeah. And it was just so great to see the community come out and support this treasure.
And that's all for this episode.
This has been Samantha, Tiriana, and Hallie for District Report.
Thanks for joining us today. See you next time.